Do we need to start talking about these now? It's in for repairs. Anyway, today we're going to talk about Milan San Remo and the use of a dropper post along with other things as well. So let's see if we can start off with making sure everyone's aware that this is a spoiler alert. If you have not watched Milan San Remo, then please, save this to your watch later list and then maybe come back to it. Okay, let's talk about a couple of things. The race itself, Slovenia, and how the race was won. I am not a cycling race analyst, so this is always just going to be my perspective from the, Monday morning Directo Sportif. Okay, so let's talk about Milan San Remo. It's essentially a 300-kilometer race, about 186 miles, because you have 293 of actual racing, and then you have the neutralized area, which has tons of tram lines or railroad tracks, for lack of a better description, and they run along the length of the road. So they're not across where you can just, cut them at a 90-degree angle. No, they're running lengthwise. So you have to watch you don't get your wheel stuck in there when you're still not racing and you're not 100% focused. And it doesn't have much climbing either for a 186-mile race. I looked at Wout van Aert's Strava. It was about 6,700 feet. And there's really only a few notable climbs. And the last two climbs is where everything kicks off. The climb over the Cipressa and the climb over the Poggio. And the Poggio is about... at the base of the Poggio, it's like 2 kilometers to the finish line. So it is a very, very exciting, about 25, 30 kilometers. But you have to, if you want to anyway, you have to wait about 6 hours for the thing to kick off, right? Okay, so does anyone find it interesting how many people were sick before this race? How many people were sick at Tirreno Adriatico and also at Paris-Nice? It seemed like a lot of people were sick, and that race, those two stage races were running concurrently. They ended, and then Milano San Remo was on Saturday. And there was a lot of rider swaps until the very last moment, it sounded like. So I just find it odd that so many people are sick. But I don't want to put out any conspiracy theories, but I did find that odd. All right, so let's talk about the last two climbs briefly. They are not steep and they are not long. They're only, 6 or 4 kilometers, something like that. And, 3-4% grades, but they ride them so hard because they know that's where the only difference is going to be made. It's not going to be made in the previous 270 kilometers of the race. And so they climb these climbs at about, I think it was like 38 kilometers an hour, which is like 23, 24 miles per hour. Very, very fast, and always, like everything else, the climb doesn't really decide things. It's how hard you push the pace on the climb. So Team UAE, which has Pogačar, I need to do a video on him. It's a 23-year-old phenom. But his team got to the front at the Cipressa and just pushed it so hard, obliterated the field. We're down to 25 to 30. You drop down off the Cipressa, a little bit of flat, you lead into the Poggio, and then it's on like Donkey Kong, as they say. Lots of attacks from Pogačar, and he could not get away. And the eventual winner, Matej Mohoric, sorry if I'm not pronouncing his name right, the other Slovenian, because you have Pogačar and you have Roglic, And both of those guys are from Slovenia. Now, here's the crazy thing. This is a tiny country, population of only 2.1 million as of 2020. They are about the country itself is about the size of Massachusetts in the US, or half the size of Switzerland. And they have 3 extremely talented cyclists coming out of Slovenia. How do they do that? I don't know. Must be something in the water. But, by contrast, San Diego County, we have 3.3 million people, and we have no one in the pro peloton. So that should show you something as to the quality of these 3 riders. Okay, so anyway, Matej attacks at the very top of the climb and just takes all kinds of risks and nearly eats it twice that we could see on screen. And, I just think the favorites, which were Pogačar, Van Aert, these guys just didn't want to chase because the risk that he was taking. One time he actually went off the road, had to bunny hop back on. Another time he nearly crashes into, there was just some, there was 2 walls he almost hit. So, I don't know, excessive amounts of risk, but, he is going to win this race if he takes those risks. Otherwise, they're coming for him. And unfortunately, Van der Poel was there too. So Van der Poel, Van Aert, and Pogačar and a few other folks, they did not organize once they hit the bottom, once they hit Via Roma. And those last 2 kilometers, here's Matej just, going for it. And they didn't organize behind him. They did not organize a chase. They did not catch him, and he wins. Okay, so that's how the race went. But the thing I wanted to talk about is these dropper seat posts. So he, in his post-race interview, talks about the fact that during the winter, he and his team were going through and experimenting with dropper seat posts, and he has one. So in the first part of the video, when you saw the dropper seat post, that is in for repair, that's why it's not acting right. But you can drop your complete body down. Now, typically you would use this on a mountain bike, because on a mountain bike, you need your saddle at a certain height so that you have the good leg extension, you have good power through the pedals. But once you summit and you're going down a descent, you'll lower that saddle so that you can, be out of the saddle and use a lot of body English to get down the descent. And you don't have to worry about the saddle constantly, back there hitting you. So on a road bike, it's just not generally used. So you lower the seat post, or you lower the seat down. Now this gives the rider a much lower center of gravity, for all my engineers out there, and it also reduces his aerodynamic drag. So he's off the front of the race, lowers his seat post, and is doing this descent. So my question to you is, how soon before we see Joe Schmo in the local bike, group ride with a dropper seat post, because, well, he wants to go faster. So here's the thing. The super tuck was banned. And if you're not familiar with the super tuck is when you sit on the top tube. So here's your saddle, and you're sitting on the top tube to get more aero and possibly a lower center of gravity. So this is proven to be faster. Anytime I'm riding with any folks with me, as soon as I get down either more aero or even sit on the top tube, I'm away, and I don't weigh that much compared to some of the other riders. So the super tuck was banned. So now this is a replacement. This lowering of the saddle to get your body lower. And what I was not aware of, because I don't drill down into these details frequently, but this rule was approved back in 2014. So a dropper seat post has been legal since about 2014 on road bikes. And the only rule you have to keep in mind is UCI rule 1.3.013, I think it is. Let me check my notes. Yeah, 1.3.013. And that talks about that your saddle, the tip of your saddle, has to be a minimum of 5 centimeters behind your bottom bracket. So that fore and aft position, here's your bottom bracket, the tip of your saddle, bike's going that way. Here's your bottom bracket, tip of the saddle has to be a minimum of 5 centimeters behind the bottom bracket. So if you raise and lower your seat, what you may not be aware of is that, again, this is the front of the bike, the saddle goes like that because the seat tube is typically at 73 to about 75 degrees, sometimes a little steeper for smaller bikes and sometimes a little more slack for larger bikes. But the seat post is doing this, so it's going up and away from the center of the bottom bracket. It's also going up and away from your handlebars, by the way. So you have to maintain 5 centimeters behind the bottom bracket. So in the lowest position, that's where it would be measured at to make sure he's still 5 centimeters behind the bottom bracket. All right, so that's that. Checking my notes for other things that I might have missed. I think that's all. So yes, my question to you is, how do you feel about this dropper post now coming over from the mountain bike world onto road bikes? How do you feel about we had those aero bars, clip-ons when Le Mans won his Tour de France, and no one else was using them, and no one else was thinking as aero. It wasn't his move to aero bars was a very avant-garde type of thing to do, and probably got scoffed at initially, and then I won the Tour, so who laughs last, right? So we have dropper posts. We have things that from time to time someone innovates, does something completely, because the peloton is very traditional, does something very untraditional, and they score a big win. So I'd like to hear your comments on it. What do you think about it? And if you haven't checked out Mate's Descent, please do that. You can find that other places. And I subscribe to GCN so I can get the whole race calendar. And it's amazing. We've never had this much availability to this much cycling ever that I can think of. Okay, that's all for today. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you up the road.